The Renegade Accelerator is open for enrollment. Female leaders, executives, founders who are asking themselves, why not now? This is for you. Head to renegadeaccelerator.com. I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now Show. We have a treat for you this week. I'm sitting at the edge of Joshua Tree National Park with my friend Ben Uyeda. He's the visionary, co-founder, award-winning architect, and creative genius behind the Reset Hotel, which is a brand new, very different hotel right outside of Joshua Tree National Park. We're there with the backdrop. We talk all things creative. We talk about the pivot of all pivots. We talk about business and life and the integration and where we believe things are going for not only experiences, but for the mix of human experience and the use of AI. So without further ado, here is my friend Ben and I do have to preface this. I was on the road and I took all the equipment myself, and my brilliant team wasn't able to join. So I was responsible for filming this and capturing the audio. That being said, it's great. And at the very end, something happened with the video, so we got cut a little bit short. But you can hear all the audio, and you'll get some good B-roll and get to see the property. So here's my friend Ben, and make sure to check out the Reset Hotel. It's incredible. You'll love it. All right, Ben. Welcome to the Why Not Now podcast in Joshua Tree. Holy smokes, never done this before. How are you?
I'm great, and welcome to Reset. Right over there, Joshua Tree National Park, those mountains, and we're so happy to have you. You're the first podcaster to record here.
I love it. I love it. We're setting a mark here. What you can't see as you're watching is what I'm looking at here, infrastructure and one of the coolest new spots to come and hang out, Reset. And tell me, in the spirit of Why Not Now, let's hop in. You're the visionary here, but is there a moment, can you tell me about a time when you had something big to decide on and you had to ask yourself, why not now? And close that delta between idea and action.
I think like this project is a chain reaction of a whole bunch of those moments, right? And the story I always really liked, it was the first story from the internet that really captured me. And it was this idea or the story about this guy who mainly used Craigslist. And he took a paperclip and he traded it for like a cigarette lighter and then traded it for a stapler. And he worked his way all the way up with these escalating trades from a red paperclip all the way to a car and then to a house. And to me, that sort of emphasized, well, you don't actually have to be a visionary. You just have to think about your next trade that gets you something up in scale. And you don't have to be an efficiency monster and have a bunch of spreadsheets and figure out how to like grow your business this many % every year by hyper focusing on all these different things and more analytics. You can just, with everything you do, make the next thing you do a little bit bigger. And so I think it lines up really well with the why not now, because if the trade is better than the last object, do it.
I love it.
And then just trust that it'll keep getting bigger and bigger and escalating in a productive and positive way.
Like an incremental growth of that why not now. It's really bravery too. So as a creative, we heard you talk a little bit about not having a vision or mission to scale as a creative. And we both share Rick Rubin, I believe, The Creative Act, which I know is in some of I know. It's one of the first things I saw when I was touring, I think your model in late January of that is a lot of his philosophy too, is like, when do you know if it's not done? Was there a moment when you remember green lighting this project?
Well, this project started because I did a YouTube series on how to build a shipping container house. And then my now business partners reached out and said, this is a really interesting series. We've been looking for something on modular design. So there was no plan to do the hotel. There was a trust that if I do something good and share it with the world, more opportunities come in, and then you evaluate those. So really the point of evaluation was sort of buying this piece of land. We're on 180 acres right next to the national park. And I think there's a bunch of little decisions that actually are just more about your values. So one of the things that was really important to us was, look, national parks are becoming more and more popular. Their visitorship has been going up. That leads to a lot of short-term vacation rentals or Airbnbs. And in California in particular, which has a real shortage of housing, we didn't want to be the people that were pulling residential housing stock and turning it into hospitality. So I think the it wasn't just, oh, do we get started? Do we take this big jump that could potentially benefit us? It was very much values-based of saying, hey, there is a better way to do this using land that's actually zoned commercial so that it brings the revenue from the tourism, really improves the city, but is not pulling housing off the market. And that way guests can come more guilt-free.
That's so rad. I think part of the now staying on property and experiencing this, the simplicity of how quickly you can just feel like you're decluttering. I know we were just talking a minute ago about how travel declutters kind of the mind, and it's a Billy Corgan thing that he said, but it's true. There's something about nature and being outdoor, and what you can't see if you're looking at this point of view is, there's an amazing bathtub over here, and the things that you've created to make and provide inside of each unit. How did you, I think of your paperclip moment. So was it a vase, or how did you arrive at incremental upscale?
So I had sold a tech company, and I was interested in figuring out what can I do next kind of on my own. I was a little burnt out. And a lot of our media partners, people like BuzzFeed and Huffington Post, were all discussing how challenging it was to pivot to video. And I said, well, I don't got anything to do. I can pivot the video on my own right now and make a YouTube video. So the first YouTube video I made was, I just took a wine bottle, I cut it in half and turned it into a vase. I think 30,000 people watched it, which is not big numbers now, but for them, I was like, holy crap, that's like a basketball arena.
First try.
Number of people. And I said, okay, let's make something else. And I kept escalating the project. So the first project was a vase. Then I made a 3-legged stool. Then I made a coffee table, and then a dining table, a staircase. And then it took me about 5 years of making incrementally bigger projects that I would just sort of design, build them myself with my own 2 hands, share them via video on the internet. And we escalated in 5 years from a vase to a house. And then it took us another 5 to 6 years to escalate from a house to a hotel. And the process was all the same. The team was really small. There was no big company. It was just each project got a little bit bigger, learned a few things, gathered some resources. Very much like a resource management video game where you're just leveling up, getting some more of the gold, getting some more of the items, putting them all together, and then you can tackle a higher level.
I think as I've been experiencing, you have 65 units here right now?
65 rooms, 180 acres.
180 acres. I mean, amazing. Go nature. But when you look at resourcefulness, I think resourcefulness is sometimes the biggest form of creativity versus resources. And obviously we need resources as well. But you mentioned, I've heard, as you look at your story and how you've navigated your career, it sounds like tech has always you've been tech forward without even trying. So I think you mentioned you graduate and then the next day you're launching your first company, but realize all these older antiquated firms are using Flash and you figure out SEO just because.
I would say I'm a technological opportunist, not a technological aficionado or practitioner. I don't know how to code things.
But you are wearing I see the glasses you're wearing.
Well, they're also like my normal glasses.
And
too.
they're now
transitioning.
But
so, yeah, I'm not a practitioner of technology.
Okay.
I don't invent things. I don't code things. But I think when I grew up on the poorer side of things, and you're always looking for opportunity. And technology becomes this great opportunity, particularly when you're young, which is also happens to be often when you're at your most economically disadvantaged.
It's a great way to say it.
Technology, I think, also plays well with youth because there's this little bit of rebellion coded right into it, right? Like inherently, a younger generation is going to be more intuitive at editing vertical video on their phone. They're going to use touchscreens with a little more skill and flexibility. They're going to like zoom in, zoom out, and just do things with a casual flick of their finger. Whereas my parents' generation is still like, you know, directly pointing the finger and trying to manipulate it like a joystick. So I've always seen technology as an opportunity, and coming right out of college, it was websites and SEO, because the old people, the older architecture firms that we were competing with, they had sterling reputations, they had extensive portfolios. We had none of that, but we knew how to make websites and then do a lot of SEO. So our conversion was terrible, but our traffic was really, really good, because all those other architecture firms, if they had a website, it was one of those flash ones that didn't index.
Totally.
And then the next sort of jump where I sort of used technology was in this sort of pivot to video moment and really focusing on low-cost video production. And then, you know, these days, sort of taking advantage of the audience being built from that, it's been more, maybe it's not so much like technologically driven, but taking everything that I sort of benefited from the creator economy, the ability to have an audience, the ability to connect with brands, and then turn that back around at sort of the real world. So I wanted to take everything that I got from the creator economy over the last like 10 to 12 years and then funnel that into a physical platform. Because what I've sort of observed is the more we're on our phones, which is too much, I've almost met no one that actually says, you know what I want? I want more time with my phone, or I want more time with my laptop. I want more time for Netflix. I think we're at like the same point with screens that we're at with calories, where people aren't trying to get more food to sort of satiate their appetite. They're actually trying to actively trick themselves into consuming less. And I think we're at the same point with digital media. So it made sense to me to take everything that we've accumulated in terms of connections and resources from digital media and then turn that into a physical third place.
I love that. And it's bridging the virtual world with the physical world in a way that's useful. It's useful. It's not just opportunist.
People do find places to travel to on Instagram, I hear.
Well, let's go from SEO. So back in the day, you had the Flash-like competitors that were probably 20 years your senior as you're graduating. And now here we are. We're not SEO, we're GEO, we're AI.
AIEO?
Yes.
Little McDonald's.
I know,
song,
right?
yeah.
No, generative, and we're artificial. So I, of course, have to go ask AI. I've got, my own agent, Renegade Rocks. She and I have quite the relationship. What do you know about Ben? What do you know about this project? What? And it's great. You're indexing, and I shouldn't even use those words anymore because that's probably like a dinosaur term. But the language and you as a thought leader, because of how you've built your presence, I think will serve this property extremely well. I met someone in the lounge earlier, and he's like, I don't know how I got here. My girlfriend booked it, and I was like, guaranteed. She asked ChatGPT. I'm not sure when they opened, and I'm like, let me fill you in. But do you think, the story behind this and how you want people to feel when they leave is one of the USP, like one of the unique selling points? Like, how do you want people to feel when they leave here?
Oh, that's up to them. Like I think we can over dictate, particularly around brand. I'm pretty basic when it comes to sort of entrepreneur stuff. I think the hard part is actually the logistics and the day-to-day problem solving and all the little things that you didn't plan and the weird random accidents that inevitably happen.
Like
especially
tariffs, getting your
materials
here?
We were right in the middle of manufacturing. So there was basically 3 construction sites for this project. My house was one where I was like building the furniture and then traveling back and forth between, traveling back and forth between here and a construction site about 10 miles away where I'm managing the concrete pours, checking in with all the sub-trades. And then there's a third construction site of a factory just outside of Toronto, Canada, where the actual rooms were being constructed, laser cut steel, welded together, lots of robots and humans involved working together. And all, construction is always a mess. When you do exotic construction like steel frame modular, it's more of a mess because it just hasn't been done as many times. When you do it in a place like right next to Joshua Tree National Park where there's not a lot of labor and you're kind of on your own, it gets even more complex. And then when you add California's sort of, let's just say, high standards for new development, it adds another layer. So then if you have a weather event like a flash flood, which we survived, or a political natural disaster, like all of a sudden you hear that there's going to be tariffs and you still have a bunch of modules in Canada, you have to be pretty flexible and adaptable. And so that's why, again, I don't really think that I always avoid the visionary or strategist term, because really you're just doing your best and earnestly chugging along, and you're just like, crap.
Get through the day.
And I was like one of the first times where I was looking at like this, like, oh, let me just wake up in the morning and look at news. I'm like, this might affect me. So called the team, adapted, and it's speaking with a sense of urgency, but not with panic, getting everyone to put their input from the engineers to the business people, throw out some wild ideas. Like, is there a way we could bet against this to hedge if they do happen and affect us?
What would that look like?
Well, it was actually one of my business partners, really sharp guy. He was immediately like, okay, if we were able to bet about the tariffs happening, we could hedge our bet and reduce our exposure by 50% through Polymarket, like right now. And we're all like, okay. At first we were like, oh, that's a little weird. And then we're like, oh, that's actually really smart. But at that point, Polymarket's not legal in the US, so had to move on. But we were able to move some things around. We had to make some concessions. We had to reduce the scope of the factory, ship them a little less finished, supplement that with labor on site, and you scramble and adapt.
You start
Scrappy.
figuring it out. So the bravery, like I think I saw your post, maybe it was a few days ago. Was it a photo of your father fishing?
Yeah.
I like living his best life. And where do you get your bravery? Because it seems to me that you've learned how to kind of manufacture it yourself.
Well, like the bravery to take risk, I don't think we necessarily, let's just remove the word bravery because it automatically assumes that it's noble. I think people do pretty audacious things just because they have like no awareness of how cringy they are. I think people do things because they don't have a good sort of sense of like data and actual safety. So there's a lot of actions people take that could be charitably framed under bravery, but actually could be coming from a much more negative thing.
Yeah, or reckless.
I admire brave people. I also admire people that play it incredibly safe because they know bad things are very real. I think there's a bravery in not taking a lot of risk and not succumbing to the fear of missing out. So I remove sort of like nobility for somebody's risk taking, because often when people sort of overly valorize risk taking, they're talking about the people that may have gotten lucky. And they're not talking about the people that may have caused waste and devastation to all the people that work for them just because they're brave and took a lot of risks that didn't really pan out. So, I think risk is really interesting, right? But I don't think there's an inherent sort of nobility to people that take it on. It might just be that they're absolute fucking psychopaths that have no concept of that and are just yada-yadaing real consequences. So I think risk is intriguing, particularly for creative people. I think most creative people I know, people in my sort of fields of design, architecture, craft, probably should take a little bit more entrepreneurial risk and be a little less service-oriented in working for clients. So I think that where there could be strategy that's useful in that concept is that what they're really trying to get to is financial security with more artistic autonomy. And risk will get you a little bit of both if you play it right. And the artistic autonomy might be the noble goal to work towards.
So would you say when you're making a decision, you could have spreadsheets, you could have intuition. How do you know when to make something happen versus let it happen?
I mean, I don't know.
Or how do you decide when to be on offense versus like when to ease up or when to really lean in? Like even look at the tariffs and just the race to open up this property. And
I think you talk to people you trust and you try to gain a little bit of like comfort just by hearing things out. But I think it's also accepting that you're not going to have a perfect answer. You're not going to information your way to every answer. You can with some, but not with all. And so there's going to have to be these leaps of faith or these moments of kind of healthy risk. I think where, one of my favorite documentaries was the Fire Festival documentary.
Yep.
Because, was Billy McFarland brave? Or was he someone that just kind of naively or maybe psychopathically just pushed through and disregarded things?
Yeah.
He probably had some strategy, but he caused a lot of destruction around him.
Yeah.
So I think, when it comes to sort of risk and these things, it's one, what are you actually trying to gain? Is it just another step on the ladder? Mm-hmm. And two, making sure that there isn't a lot of collateral damage that's going to come from your bravery.
That takes me to, I think, a point where we were talking about even hospitality, and I've been in tech most of my career, and a lot of times tech companies will hire people outside the industry because they want their fresh eyes, right? And rightfully so, and any industry if they want to innovate. And they want them to not know the playbook because they want a new one. And so we were talking about, let's just look at hospitality or travel. Your point of view, and I'd love for you to share this in your own words because I thought it was really well articulated, and I thought it was kind of an umbrella for innovation or maybe reinvention, of when you bring in someone from a different swim lane at a certain point, how much it can impact an industry or a shift in a trend. So like with this as an example, your background isn't necessarily hospitality, right?
No, it's not.
How can you explain that in terms of the unfair advantage that can bring to people if they don't have any experience in something, but they have an idea that they feel super, like a lot of conviction about?
I think it's more that we often think of, in the context of business, people often think of demand as being proven popularity by observing what things get sold the most, what things get watched the most. And so, for example, in YouTube, people will be like, people love Mr. Beast videos because his videos are the most watched. So therefore, there's demand for Mr. Beast videos, and we should make videos just like him. And what that doesn't assume or doesn't consider, I think, strategically is, well, what's the supply? This Mr. Beast videos do really well in the algorithm, so their supply is there in a lot of people's things. So we don't really know, and it might be completely satiating that demand with the videos he's already making. So just because his videos are really well watched doesn't mean you as a new up-and-coming content creator should create videos just like that. Mm-hmm. And that becomes sort of the trap within like an individual discipline. And I've seen this in my sort of field of making design and fabrication content, designing and building furniture on YouTube and Instagram, is people start to fall into genres. So the people that are really good at woodworking, they sort of follow the rules of woodworking. And the people that are really good at metalworking, they stick to those tools and things like that. Whereas a lot of the videos that were really popping were cross-genre. They were mixing one thing with another. Mm-hmm. Their beginner-level metalworking with beginner-level woodworking was often out-competing super advanced level single disciplinary actions. Yeah. Just because those things were already saturated. Yeah. There was so much of that content. And so it was that kind of fusion of two things, mm-hmm. even if they were at a much lower skill level, was sort of popping through.
That became the novelty.
So the trick is, I think, acknowledging that if you're mixing two things, there's going to be some other challenges. But you might be starting off with some sort of inherent competitive advantage, but it doesn't mean you get to shirk all the normal rules that have been developed within these industries over time. So it's having the humility to know that the people that have done this before know a lot that you don't know. And for me, as a first-time sort of hotel developer, it was, okay, I don't have experience in this thing. I have a lot of experience in design, fabrication, and development. But when we put together the team, mm-hmm. our civil engineer has like 35 to 40 years experience. Our general contractor has over 40 years experience. And so what we were doing in putting this team together is we were borrowing their decades and their wealth of things, working in a single discipline to supplement me and my business partner Adam's maybe our cheerfully, aggressively, but somewhat naive approach to hospitality.
Okay. I love that. I always think, innovation is usually mixing things that don't typically go together. It's not like it's brand new. It's just the combustion of whatever those things are. And it might feel random. But so when you look at, let's use the word chaos as an entrepreneur, or an operator or a leader, you might have 3 different variables that feel like the sky is falling at one moment. How do you deal with chaos personally in terms of being able to regulate and stay calm and keep your eye on the ball?
You roll your eyes, you don't take yourself too seriously, and you find a little bit of humor with your teammates that have been through a few of these situations with you. So my youngest sister works for me, Jessie. She's sort of like my chief of staff, and we've worked together for like 10 years. And we laugh so hard on the worst days where like just everything goes wrong. It's like freezing cold. We're out like shoveling gravel at 2 a.m. at night because there's a building inspection for this one little thing, and the subcontractors forgot to do this thing. So now here we are as an owner and owner's
and
sister,
brother and sister.
yeah, dragging around gravel in a wheelbarrow. But it's like it's silly. And it's going to be those sort of things that create those specific memories. Mm-hmm. She'll take whenever we're in these kind of awkward construction situations, she'll post sort of stories making fun of me and being like, what did my brother drag me into again? Mm-hmm. So humor and camaraderie, the sort of gallows humor of struggle, I think is really helpful. Because it's going to end, or you're going to quit. And both are totally fine.
It's all going to be just fine. Just like when I was looking at the camera, I was like, right. I don't know if it's it. How are we going to know we're going to done? Well, the sun will set, and we'll know what time it is. It can be
really simple. Are you going to die?
No.
Are you going to lose? Are you going to lose some sort of major human function forever? Then it'll probably be okay.
Probably doing okay. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Female leaders, executives, founders, heads up, the Renegade Accelerator is open for enrollment. Renegades are at the top of their game. They're doing all the things, but usually there's something that they really want to do. What you do is you bring your why not now idea into this 8-week program. We're focused on curriculum, the Renegade mindset, collaboration, and accountability. We are all focused on growing our thought leadership, finding more time in the day by leveraging our presence. So it is present even when we are not. We are focused on optimizing our time and money and health. It is a mosaic of all types of women from different backgrounds at the top of their game, and the value exchange is exponential. Here are some why not now ideas that have come to life through Renegade. Why not now write the book? I want to get a board seat. I want to increase my speaking fee. I want to build a company. I want to pivot from corporate into entrepreneurship. I want a promotion within corporate. I want to move my brick and mortar company online so I have more freedom. I want to travel 25% of the year but not see a dip in income. Those are a variety of why not now ideas that have been greenlit. They're done. What is your why not now idea? We're ready. If you're ready, head to renegadeaccelerator.com for more information and to apply. Quick question. You got to show your tattoos real quick. Can you tell us what those mean?
Well, I use it as a ruler, not so much for precise measurements, but for general estimation. So it's every single inch increment, so I can just kind of slide my arm around and get my basic measurements. Like I said, I don't really use it for fine woodworking, but it's really handy if, for example, if you're looking at 2 circular saw blades, as one does. A 6.5 inch blade looks very similar to a 7 1/4 inch blade.
Yeah, I know that.
So you can just hold them up and quickly, yeah.
Okay, and there we have it. So, what brings you joy?
I like making things. I think right now my new hobby is bonsai, and it led from my sort of rock carving, right? So I was really interested in carving rocks. We have a lot of rocks out here in the desert.
We do.
So I started doing that, became sort of proficient at it, created sort of a popular series around the sort of rock sculptures. And then when I started looking for a new twist to add to it, I was looking to add another beginner level thing that I hadn't started yet, and that was bonsai. So I got all these little trees.
Yeah. I mean, I know what a bonsai tree is, but when you just say bonsai, period.
So bonsai is the act of shaping and artistically sort of controlling these little trees. So I just got a whole bunch of...
We're going to go deep fast here, huh?
I got a whole bunch of juniper trees, and now I'm sort of like shaping them, rewatering them, putting them in different pots, using wire to kind of articulate where the branches are growing, and then aggressively pruning them to kind of... It's like a very slow way of sculpting a living object.
Super interesting. So we were at dinner last night. You were telling me about, I was like, you messy? Are you organized? Like, how would you explain that? And you had a story about your laundry and how you created a solution for the laundry. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I think it leads and sheds insight into how you think.
Yeah, so
And who are the stakeholders?
I've designed for a lot of people. And often when people, the worst thing you can do if you ever hire an architect or a designer to design something for you is when they ask what you want, you describe the aspirational version of yourself that you aren't actually there yet.
Of course, that's
right?
Advertising,
so
right?
If your designer, interior designer, or architect asks you, oh, are you a neat or messy person? Tell the truth. You'll get a product and an environment that actually fits you much better. So if I'm designing for a really neat person, it's a lot of compartmentalization. It's a shelf for everything. There's lots of conversations. If I'm designing for a messy person, I might not give them a really highly articulated closet. I might give them a whole dressing room where they can be messy in there, do all their changing and transitions there, and then just shut the door, and maybe they have a smaller bedroom. But because all of the changing is happening in that dressing room, the bedroom stays more neat and more zen. I have experiences in my own life, and my favorite story of this is in college. So in college, I was clean but messy. So I had a dresser in the corner of my room, but I would never, after I did laundry on the rare occasions, I wouldn't fold the clothes and then put them into things. I would just put them in the clean piles and separate out the dirty piles. And as many guys have said in that era of life, I got a system. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, not the most inviting room when you're sort of coming in and you just see all these piles. And to someone walking into the room, they couldn't tell which ones are clean or dirty. So what I did was like, okay, I forgave myself and realized that I was never going to be the person that folded up all the laundry and put them right into the...
Self-awareness.
Right. I wasn't going to put them in the drawers.
Yep.
So instead, I took apart the whole dresser, and then I got 3 white laundry baskets and 3 gray ones. The white laundry baskets were for clean clothes, so the piles go into those baskets, and the gray ones for dirty clothes. Piles go into those baskets. And then I reconfigured using the wood from the dresser to make bigger shelves the laundry baskets slide into. And what I was doing is I wasn't trying to force myself into some David Goggins, I'm going to be super disciplined, I'm going to ruin my whole life and cold plunge for 10 hours every morning and then run 30 miles and then eat nothing but like red meat. Instead I was saying like, yeah, this is kind of who I am. Let's make it a little bit better. And so there's a little bit of acceptance, but then a lot of action to build around not the aspirational vision.
Yeah. Yes, like meet yourself where you are.
Yeah.
And I like that. Okay. I'm like, I can think of 5
So I think that's
areas
like
in
a
my
really
life
practical way to design. And I think that's actually later on when I read Atomic Habits, it so resonated because it's so much of what he talks about is like, don't beat yourself up about, I need to be more disciplined. Remember to take my vitamins in the morning. Just change where you put them so you see them. And I think what I loved about that book was that kind of self-acceptance, but at the same time, you're almost trying to outsmart yourself.
Right. Well, you're working to your own advantage too.
Yeah.
Like you're so self-aware that you're actualizing in almost a cheating way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay. What's one thing you keep learning over and over, Ben? What is it?
Oh, what do I learn over and over
What's a
again?
lesson you keep learning over and over, and it's like, damn it, I know this one.
Everything's going to be harder and take a little bit longer. And
Sounds like someone coming out of a construction project.
yeah, it's I mean, especially in like design and construction, it's almost like a joke. Like there's this whole idea of like, we got to put a contingency onto our sort of budgets and performance that we meticulously sort of spent so many hours debating and fine tuning and got to get some more data. And then you're like, yeah, but we're probably going to be wrong. So let's add like 10% to this. So I think that's why I love talking to not my peers, but the people that have been doing it like a decade longer. I've always found the best mentors are people that are doing something similar, but they're about 10 to 15 years older. So there's no sort of sense of competitiveness because you're kind of in different generations.
Yeah. And they want to genuinely
Right.
give you their lessons.
So I really like talking to them and just being like, and it's always funny to me because they'll give me great advice. And then we'll look at each other and be like, probably not going to take all of that. I know I should. I just don't feel it yet. But what it does do is you won't necessarily follow their advice. You won't just hear someone tell you something that you believe is wise, but you don't feel it is wise. But what it does, I think, is it creates like an early detection system.
Teaches you how to think differently.
It tells you not to necessarily, it's not someone saying, don't build your house on the coast because there's going to be a tsunami. You're still building your house on the coast, but at least you know like the warning signs. When the waves start to go out, you know to take off and leave. And I think that's really the thing of the wisdom of elders that is, you won't avoid the mistakes, but you'll be a little more prepared to deal with them.
I agree. And they plant seeds to where they teach you how to ask yourself the questions that they would likely ask you. It's just like coming up and it's interesting, like taking what's useful, discarding what's not, and then creating your own, which is totally a Bruce Lee thing. So what's going on behind us here? You have big plans. You have a ton of acreage. We're right up against Joshua Tree National Park, which is on the other side of that mountain, right? Am I saying that right?
That is the national park right there.
Which is awesome, by the way. As someone who grew up in Arizona, spent a lot of years in Arizona and didn't really ever experience it, and knowing a lot of friends in Southern California who haven't been out here, come out here. But like, what do you see for this space?
Well, I think the more digital our lives get, the more we'll desire sort of nature. I think we all want to have less screen time. So emptiness is actually an asset now.
I agree.
Right? We actually want, people brag about fasting, right? They're literally bragging about not eating as being good for them.
Yes.
And the same thing with sort of like, silent retreats or places where they lock up your phone. Emptiness is going to actually become a commodity rather than just necessarily the place to add something. People are actually embracing the idea of being hunger or some levels of discomfort. And that is, I think, in many ways a sign of, while maybe not evenly distributed, of a very affluent society that is like trying to figure out how to deal with its own excesses in a lot of cases. So I think that was sort of the underpinnings of the sort of brand idea for Reset was, where are we at? I think nature is going to continue to be more valuable. I think we're going to see various tiers of even things like agriculture become high-end luxuries. And we're going to know that almost anything digital can be done super fast and maybe even now artificially. And what is that going to leave us with? It's going to leave us with, let's walk the earth. Let's play with some rocks. Let's stare uninterrupted. And from a design standpoint, we were thinking about nature. And then I was thinking about like tourism and travel. And when I was talking to a lot of people, just sort of putting together the palette for what I thought would be interesting as a designer, one of the things I would show people images and be, what do you think of this? Too touristy, or does this look cool? And people don't always know what they like or don't like. But what I saw by sort of showing a whole bunch of friends that were in kind of the demographic that we want to attract is that they had a strong aversion to a lot of railings on things. If they saw like balcony railings and stuff like that, it made them think Carnival cruise, and it made them think tourism, and it made them think of sort of
guardrails,
being entertained at a circus and where you're just watching stuff, but you're not actually open and participating.
Yeah, interesting.
And when we thought about this, we're like, let's not do this fake landscape. The natural landscape is perfect. Let's just leave it open, no railing. So you walk out onto this patio. There's a little fireplace right here. Normally the sofa's the other way around. But you can just stare, not at your screen, but let your eyes literally stare miles away. Or even look just straight up, and we're actually having shooting stars tonight and tomorrow night.
I know, I saw some last night.
So
Amazing.
it's turning that emptiness and packaging and bringing infrastructure right to the edge of nature. And I think that's going to be this really interesting sort of desirable place.
Interesting. And it's like native raw materials. So each unit, you know, I grew up in a trailer, a single wide trailer, and I've lived on a boat. And like, I think I really crave simplicity, like experientially as well.
Crate trained.
Right, was that crate train? Yeah, I'd call it crate train. But I enjoy like this sense of less, like wanting to shed. But then each unit here has this amazing, you know, outdoor entry integration based on where the windows are. And it just so happens this is my unit right here. And yes, I set this all up today. And you can see the backdrop, and that's the focal point when you're inside, you know, this infrastructure, which is very simple and gorgeous and beautiful and intentional. But I'm always focused on what's this. Like, this is the focal point, and it feels abundant, and it also feels very raw, intentionally and natural.
Well, I mean, we could go onto Temu right now and fill up any space with a whole bunch of decor. And we could stack it so that everything is busy and alive with just different visual artifacts to look at. I don't find that particularly restful. It can be.
I think our nervous systems are like overloaded from it. We're buzzing from that.
And I think there's more people that have acquired too much stuff. And I don't think this is actually economically driven. I think people at sort of all ends of the economic spectrum probably have a little too much stuff in their house. I don't think Marie Kondo would be so popular if that wasn't the case. So
I know.
When you're creating sort of
point.
something for hospitality, or you're creating a non-typical experience that hopefully becomes a occasional ritual. Most of our visitors will come out from LA. And we think there's this opportunity where they may not be able to sort of purge everything from their life and really dial everything in, but they can escape it and have a moment of reflection where maybe they get some leverage on the sort of systemic challenges that they're facing. And that's why we came up with my business partner, Adam, came up with the name Reset. It was a little bit of an analog to sort of a computer when everything's going slow.
Yes.
You just hit all the buttons,
Yep.
turn it off, turn it back on. And we all know that. It's like such an internet joke that like
Control.
something's not working,
Yep.
turn it off and turn it back on.
Hard or soft reset. Let's
Well,
go.
if we're overstimulated, feeling over anxious, I think his sort of insight was maybe you should be in a place of less, where the less is really profound, undeniable, eternal, and then all you need to do is just sit here and enjoy it.
Yeah. I love that so much. I have a 6-year-old. A lot of times we're like, we need to reset. And he thinks that my tattoo is a button. But it will change his frame. Whatever it takes. It's like you can reset as many times as you need to. But if it's accessible, it's quite incredible. So when you look at, you know, where things are going for travel, where things are going for hospitality, nature, how much do you want to play in that space? Or are you more interested in your next paperclip move?
Oh, I'm just interested in interesting projects. Now, Reset is a platform, and we have all that land. So we have the nature, we have the uninterrupted views. So how do we add sort of interesting artistic moments of culture? And I think the next series of projects are going to be large-scale installation art pieces throughout there.
Okay.
I love Storm King. I like Burning Man. But what I think is interesting about both of them, and Storm King's sort of having a revival of interest. It's becoming
a moment.
Yeah, It's having a moment. And Burning Man has had many moments. But I think what's interesting in both cases about them is it's not that the people that go there is because they love art and now they're just seeing big versions of it. I think they're actually more aficionados of scale and immersive sort of feelings. And so, we have this where, my favorite rock climbing spots in the park are just, 3 to 4 miles right over there. That's undeniable. That's the main draw. But on the second or third day, we think we can create some pretty amazing human integrated artistic moments within this sort of beautiful landscape that we have. Now, that from a business standpoint, I love this because it means the project isn't built and then it's commodified and you get people in or out and you slowly repair it over time and it degrades in sort of value. In my sort of line of work, every time I make something, I don't just share the end product, I share the process, and that often does better numbers than the end product by itself. So we can continue to add physical assets to the property and create marketing value through the process along the way. So there's always a reason to design and do more creative acts. And
Thank you, Rick Rubin.
Which makes it also more interesting for people to come back because the property is always evolving and growing.
The story is unfolding. Okay, so Renegade. So I was out here several months ago and just shared what I was seeing. And then a lot of people within my, friend set and close circle and beyond, I think are like not necessarily into architecture or creative design, but they are just, oh my gosh, did you see what Ben built? Did you see what Hotel Reset? And so we're going to come out here. They keep asking, when do we get to go? What can we do? Like, you have a blank canvas. So what could we create for a Renegade experience out here?
The good news is this is a small hotel, 65 rooms, and you have ownership sort of directly involved. You have a very young and eager staff. So you can work with us. If you had a call with Z and said, hey, we want to do beach volleyball. Well, we know where to get a whole bunch of sand, and we'll set it up right in the desert, and we can recreate the scenes from Top Gun, high fives, baby oil and all, right out in the desert. If you say you want to do something a little bit more on the creative and craft side, oh, well, you see all those like beautiful little concrete planters and stuff we made those? We actually offer that as a workshop. You want to do more rest and relaxation? We'll hook you up with a sound bath or maybe a massage from one of our local purveyors, and might even do some poolside yoga. So I think the key for retreats, and you know this way better than me, I go to a lot of these more as like a speaker or sometimes as an attendee.
Sick.
And the ones I always love are the ones where they plan in a couple hours of downtime.
Yes. Yep.
And so I also think in part of doing a retreat in a place like nature is you want to actually think about the time of year you're doing it. So right now it's in July. It was very warm today. Now it's beautiful. Cool with a little bit of a breeze. So on a day like this, if you're hosting sort of a retreat, you want to schedule in a very nice siesta from like 1 p.m. to maybe like 2:30.
Okay.
And then you sort of put like a little optional thing and being like, but if you can't really sleep or you don't have emails to send, meet us over in this little lounge and maybe we'll get started on a little martini or a margarita. So obviously there's beautiful things like the pool, there's lots of hiking and stuff like that. But I think what's really important is the sequencing of these things. It's acknowledging that the weather and environment is harsh. That's what makes it interesting and kind of puts you on your toes. So you want to respond to it. So if we're doing hiking, we should do it now. If we want to go into the national park and do a little rock climbing, we should do it about an hour ago, right at the golden hour, best photos.
Yeah.
So I think it's really programming in those kind of things and just seeing like, oh, here's the easy fits. But if you want like more stimulating things, there's a lot of outdoor recreation things. We
need a little
here.
amphitheater, like out of stone rocks, like even if it's small, but like stage, total natural.
You are giving me an excuse to rent a bulldozer and carve it right into the mountain.
And we could be a part of the project.
Yeah.
Like we could help you. That's even fun. I mean, I grew up
like a barn
family,
raising.
like Caterpillar, call us. They can sponsor it. But truly, like, because that is another blank canvas on top of a blank canvas, whether it's performance or storytelling or teaching or comedy or like talent show. I just love that because what better backdrop?
I think also aspirational competency is a really interesting programming thing. When I've sort of done retreats for that, right?
That? Like
so I brought a bunch of my fancy friends out here, and they're from New York and LA. And they were having one of the things that they had the most fun doing was just learning how to chop wood.
Yes.
Because these are guys
like,
that
I've
have
never
done
even
more
known how that
reps with a
works.
sledgehammer on a tire on an indoor air-conditioned gym than they actually had done it in real life. But when you actually hear the crack of the wood and it splits and everyone's standing around watching and they get competitive and there's like a haptic feedback, but it feels very like raw and also utilitarian.
Yeah.
They had so much fun. And they loved learning how to do it. Now, would they be interested in doing that day after day? No. But introducing these sort of moments of novel practicality, another thing that was a big hit for, we've been testing out a lot of sort of workshop and events ideas. We've all probably seen those videos on Instagram of a guy like cooking on a cast iron pot on an open fire in a beautiful setting. And he has this one knife and he chops at the onion. And it's just so ASMR, so beautiful and scenic. And you're just like,
That's amazing.
he could make the simplest food. He's like, oh, he made chili. I'm like, that looks amazing. I want to eat that. We did some campfire cooking classes with some of our one of the chefs that created our menu and a few of us sort of influencer guests. It was so much fun because they were like asking like, oh, why do you do that? Oh, should we baste the steak on the campfire? And it's
That's
great
cool.
because it's like, one, we're anticipating eating the food. We got a little bit of an expert, but it's done in a casual setting, so it doesn't feel like we're a classroom. We're going to get something wrong. But it's also a skill that we can then share with others.
Yep.
So I actually think a lot of particularly high achievers, they love compartmentalized, practical things that are really scenic.
Interesting. That makes sense. That makes sense. I was just sailing like a couple days ago, and we had leftovers from this like theme night with chicken, and someone was going to like throw some of the chicken out, thinking we're on the boat. Like, what are we going to use with the chicken? I was like, oh, absolutely not. Like, we'll find a way. And we created the most amazing chicken nachos the next night. Couldn't find propane, couldn't get everything to work, but then finally get the back barbecue on the boat to work. And it was like, we felt that it was teamwork. It was like being super resourceful, and then being able to enjoy those nachos. I know it sounds so remedial, but it was like the coolest. They could have been not very tasteful, but they were amazing because we did it together and we felt like we overcome, like it was a hero's journey for chicken nachos.
I've had some pretty unfancy food on the back of a truck in a scenic location that would knock the socks off of some very fancy restaurants where you're surrounded by uncomfortable people.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so the sun is telling us that it's probably time to start wrapping up here soon. Thank you, nature. Can you take me back? You know, you're graduating, you're an architect, and you're like, okay, I'm going to get going here. And you have the world in front of you, and you are not using a Flash website. If you could go back and just say a couple of words of wisdom to that person, that version, what would you say?
Well, I don't know that I had like such a bright future ahead of me. What I knew, or I didn't necessarily believe that. What I believed was that I had a few $100,000 of student loan debt in front of me, and I needed to hustle and get some stuff done. So the urgency felt very apparent. But I think at that point, too, there was inherent curiosity. I think actually one of the greatest motivators is being not sure if you can do things. As I became more confident, I play things maybe a little bit more or less safely, right? The more competent I am at sort of designing and building something, the more comfortable sometimes I become at procrastinating because of I have more predictability to my skill set. Mm-hmm. Whereas
Confidence in your competence.
When I started early, I was so scared that I couldn't do it that I was going to start right away and go really hard. Now, I think that's actually a good thing. I don't like fighting some of those tendencies. I like that I'm more confident now, and I also like that I don't quite push myself as hard as I did in my 20s. I think that is a healthy thing. The energy levels are a little bit lower, but I'm a little bit more efficient and smarter at sort of playing the angles. And I think that's the beauty of sort of aging, is that you actually see that progression with yourself, and you're not trying to force yourself at 46 to act the same way you did at 26. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the part that I've really enjoyed. So if I was to go back and tell myself, it'd be like, you are actually going to change, but it's going to happen so subtle that you only really see it in like year increments, and it's all great.
It's all great. It's all great.
It's all fun.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for sharing your vision and your experience and your space.
Reset
and
Hotel, come visit.
Absolutely. And we'll have to do this again soon.
Absolutely.
We're going to bring all the Renegades out here.
All the Renegades.
I don't know if you're ready for this, Ben.
Backflips in the mountains.
I don't know if you're ready, but we're going to do it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.